A little vino. It's perfect.
Hey everybody, we are live.
Hey everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Marc Sievers. And tonight we are doing another Together Live. So I'm just going to wait a few minutes to let people kind of log on and get connected. I have, of course, the other Mr. Sievers is here tonight.
Hello everybody.
And he is going to be making sure that questions from you are getting asked to me and all those great things. And I'm drinking a little red wine this evening because of kind of Italian flavors that we're going to be using tonight in my white bean sliders. So yeah, if you're joining me and cooking along, first question is, does anybody have any questions or needed to substitute any ingredients? Let me know if you have any questions before we get started. I was actually able to find everything in my grocery store, including the slider buns. So let's start with getting, I think, kind of the white beans together, because white beans are such a beautiful base for these sliders. White beans in general have the most beautiful, delicate flavor and kind of like a velvety texture. And for this small amount of beans, I really rely on canned beans quite often. I buy the best quality, organic, no salt added. I really buy the best quality white beans that I can get my hands on. And this is just one can of a 15-ounce can of white beans that I've drained and well rinsed. And I just love them. There's no need for this small amount to make your own beans and soak dried beans overnight and then boil them away. For something like this, where the white beans are the major component, but they're going to get infused with other ingredients, this canned beans works perfectly well. So I've been talking a lot about trying to simplify, in a way, the process of cooking and making things really accessible and trying to use as little electric appliances and small kitchen appliances as possible. So when I wrote this recipe for my cookbook Table for Two in 2016, Table for Two, there I am, about 20 pounds lighter than I am currently now, but that's okay. The quarantine diet has really done me well. I'm really getting acquainted with a lot of grapes. All varieties, actually. And I know many of you are too. So when I wrote the book, I originally wrote this recipe for using a little mini food processor or a regular food processor. So this is just a small little KitchenAid food processor. Every major appliance brand makes a small one. And these are great for small little jobs. Making vinaigrettes, making my vinaigrette vat, which is available on my website. Uses a lot of fresh herbs. And then when Ryan and I were visiting my family, I would say probably 2 years ago was when I made these for Auntie and Uncle Dan. Maybe 3 years ago, Ryan. Do you remember? Oh yeah, probably 3 years ago because it's now 2020.
Yeah.
I wanted to make these for my godmother and uncle, and they didn't have any food processor. And I thought, oh goodness, and I thought, well, wait a second, I can just use the back of a fork and mash them up. And then when I came back to Chicago, I was like, well, what else can I use? And I turned to my good old faithful pastry blender that I think I've used this now, Ryan, the last 3 of Together Lives.
Definitely we did the pastry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
right. And the biscuits.
Oh, that's right.
Right. So
useful tool.
The fig and cream scones. We did that, and then we did the pastry, and now we're going to make meat sliders out of using this. So I just love when something comes together like this, because now I've completely eliminated small kitchen gadgets, and I just need my good old pastry blender. So all I'm going to do, Ryan, give them a little overhead for me. And what I'm doing is just kind of mashing this up. And you know, what I actually found is this actually gives it I don't want to say a better texture, but it just gives it a little bit more texture than putting it into the food processor. So each process, whether you're using the food processor or a hand pastry blender, you're going to get a beautiful white bean veggie burger out of this. But look how quick that is. Pretty quick, right? So, and you'll see there's still lots of texture in here, and pretty easy. And what I love about this now is I can make these really anywhere. If we're on vacation and maybe the rental doesn't have a food processor, I can even just use the back of a fork, and I can now make these, you know, even at somebody's house. So that for me is a big fun thing. Next, we need some herbs. While white beans have beautiful flavor, we want to infuse them with lots of flavor. So my go-to herbs for this is basil and flat leaf Italian parsley. And I still have my basil plant growing away in my windowsill. And I told you the last time, you know, I really try to buy plants like this whenever possible for any herb that I'm wanting to use, because I think it's a much better value. And the quality and the flavor of the herb you're getting from a plant versus a plastic package is going to be much, much better. And of course, if you're lucky enough to have a garden, you can, of course, grow all of your own fresh herbs, which is, I think, one of beautiful luxury. I have often these fantasies of the garden that Ryan and I would keep if we had a backyard and a house. And I explain these gorgeous things and these raised beds and these high stone walls. And Ryan said, wow, you really must be thinking of selling hundreds of thousands of cookbooks. So I'm just relying on my good old little windowsill for this. But so I showed you how to cut basil the last time, but I'm going to do it again. So we want this to be kind of finely minced. And if you remember correctly, I told you about going over basil too many times can kind of turn the edges of the basil black and very dark. And for something like a salad or when the garnish of the basil is going to be on top, we don't really want that because we want to kind of retain as much as that green as possible. So what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of stacking the leaves in just a little stack, and I'm going to roll them like a cigar. Take my nice sharp knife, and I'm going to go across that roll of basil leaves and thinly slice them. And that's called a chiffonade. This is great to put into salads on top of pastas, but I want this to be a little bit finer. I don't want to take a bite of a veggie burger, and then when you take the sandwich away, you kind of get that stringy basil piece. I don't love that. So I'm just going to go the opposite direction just a few times and just give that a little bit of a mince. And this is about 3 tablespoons. If you can't find basil in your grocery store, you could also just use fresh parsley, or you know, you could even use tarragon in these, would be beautiful. So now we're going to use some flat leaf Italian parsley. And I always keep my flat leaf Italian parsley just in a simple little Duralex drinking glass, a little bit of fresh water every day, and it really does keep my parsley nice and fresh. And plus it also looks great, you know, on the table, or this I actually store right in just in this little bookcase, and it looks great, and I always have fresh parsley available, which I love. So fresh leaf Italian parsley. I remember as a kid, my grandmother had it in a jar or in a plastic container and would use it on top of things, and it always smelled terrible to me. And it never added any flavor, and I hated it.
It'd be that thing that got stuck in your teeth.
Yeah, it did, right? And when Ryan and I first started dating, I made him a beautiful pasta dish. And it had, I think it had, we were using bucatini, if I remember this correct, linguine, and tons of fresh parsley and salted butter and like barely cracked peppercorns. And I used parsley as an ingredient versus a garnish. And he loved it from then on. So
sometimes the simplest things.
Simplest things. And parsley really does have beautiful flavor. Flat leaf Italian parsley, I think, is better flavor than curly parsley. If you can really find curly, use it maybe a tiny bit more. So now, just like you do when you're making regular meatballs or a regular meat-based slider, I still don't want to compact the white bean mixture. I want to keep it nice and light because that's what's going to, I think, give this some really beautiful texture. So I'm just kind of using just the tines of a dinner fork and just mixing it around. So from here, I'm going to add in some other great ingredients. So a third of a cup plus 1 tablespoon of just dry breadcrumbs. I tend to use dry breadcrumbs for this versus the seasoned ones because I'm already adding so much other seasoning. I don't want to overpower it. And there's certainly no need to make fresh breadcrumbs for this because dried from a can works just fine. And then I have 1 extra large egg and a tablespoon of half and half or heavy cream or milk, whatever you have at home. And let's just give this a quick little whisk. And this is going to help bind everything together. Again, this is just like making just a regular meat-based slider. This is going to help bind everything together. Pour that in just like so. And we're going to add some cheese, my favorite ingredient. So I'm adding Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. This is 24-month aged, beautiful, delicious Italian cheese. And I'm going to put in about 3 tablespoons. I very rarely have measurements written down because I have a pretty good memory, but this is a lot of measurements tonight. So I just want to make sure, I know you've printed out the recipe at home as well, and of course you can get all of these measurements at marksievers.com, or of course in my cookbook Table for Two, which is also available on the website. So I don't know, about 3 tablespoons. That may be a cup of cheese, but I've never known heavy cream or more cheese to hurt anything.
Or butter.
Or butter. Or wine. Or chocolate. Or French fries. I mean, the list really does go on and on.
Yeah.
So let's just mix this around. Just like so. And now, let's go into the kitchen and get our sauteed onions started. And I'm going to show you I've already made a batch ahead of time because these will bake and all of those things. So give them a little overhead view, Ryan, of what we're making. So these are these gorgeous sliders. And they fit, of course, they're still nice and warm, perfectly on my little pretzel buns that I found. So these are going to be delicious for later. So this is what we're working toward, these beautiful sliders. I'm going to put them right over here. So let's go into the kitchen. Come with me. Bring my wine, most important. So, like any good base, we need to add lots of beautiful aromatics. And I'm going to use some beautiful red onions, some garlic, crushed oregano, some pepper flakes, some more fresh herbs. So let's get this is my little 10-inch saute pan. I have them actually 2 versions here. Well, I won't show you that one. This one doesn't have a long handle, so whenever I'm using more than one burner, I have a small kitchen, you guys can see that. And I have electric cooking, and not the type of induction where as soon as I turn off the burner, the burner goes cold. My burners stay hot for quite a while. So whenever I'm doing things in the kitchen that I need a little bit more space, I always use a pan without a handle because that handle allows me to either put additional pans on the stovetop and just kind of not get in the way. So 10-inch saute pan set over medium heat, and to that we're going to add some butter, about a tablespoon, And this is just unsalted butter. Because you're putting it into a pan, it can be room temperature or cold. I always have room temperature butter available. It also melts faster. So just saves me an extra, minute or two. And then about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And we're going to save another tablespoon of olive oil for the veggie burgers. And then we need some beautiful onions. So I've already have half an onion, just very small red onion. If you can only find larger red onions, just use half. This is a very forgiving recipe, which I love because you can adapt it to what you can find in the grocery store. This would also be delicious with a beautiful Spanish onion or even just a Vidalia onion. So I've taken off the peel, and then to get a nice kind of smaller 1/4-inch dice, flat side onto the board, just like this, take your palm of your hand and set it right on top of the onion. Take your nice sharp knife and then just do nice long cuts. And notice I'm not doing sawing back and forth. I'm taking my knife and I'm running it from the very edge of that onion, and as I'm slicing through, I'm forcing the knife forward. So I'm getting these nice, clean, nice, easy cuts. And then go up and down to about 1/4 inch wide, just like that. Then rotate the onion, and then et voila, that gives you like perfectly diced onions. You can do that same technique for 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, and that is the way you get nice, even-sized onions. They don't have to be you don't have to get out a ruler and do 1/4 inch measurement. But what you do want is try to get your onions, whenever you're sauteing vegetables or roasting things, you want to try to get them all to be very similar sized, because that will also make sure that they cook evenly. So you can hear my butter. So I'm going to let's put in our onions. And if you've already cut and minced your rosemary and thyme, put that in too. But I just wanted to show you again how to prepare those. Nice spoon, toss this around. Something about the smell of onions and butter sauteing, it automatically just smells delicious. So I'm going to put in my red pepper flakes, about 1/4 teaspoon. If you like more heat, you can add more very easily. And then oregano. Dried oregano is my friend in the kitchen. I tend to not use fresh oregano. It is extremely strong, but dried oregano for this is perfect. And I put it in the palm of my hand and then just rub it between my hands, and that helps release some of that essential oil that's left in that dried oregano. And then of course it will continue to release its beautiful flavor as everything sautés. Let's put in our pepper, freshly cracked black pepper, about 3/4 teaspoon. And then our salt, about 3/4 teaspoon. Nice. Perfect. So, we need fresh herbs. I have, for my little windowsill garden, I have some fresh rosemary and some fresh thyme. And I'm just going to strip those rosemary leaves off and just give it a nice mince. And we want about a teaspoon each of fresh herbs. The rosemary, you want to get it pretty finely minced, because rosemary has much more of a kind of a woodier leaf that really does need to be minced pretty finely in order to be inside of your sliders, because we don't want to bite into a big piece of rosemary. And then the thyme, this is the most delicate little fresh spring thyme. It's been growing in my windowsill for about a month. And the leaves are so tender and so soft that tonight, I don't even think I'm going to chop them. They're very, very tiny. Look how beautiful these are. And if you're buying some herbs in the grocery store, I've never had thyme to be that delicate before in the grocery store. So you give that a little mince. But this is just going to go in just like that because they're already nice and delicate. And the idea to this is we don't want these onions to get brown or caramelized or really any color. We just want to saute them so that they're nice and translucent and tender, and they release all of that beautiful onion flavor. So about 5 to 7 minutes. But, well, let's take a sip of wine if you're cooking along with me. You know, usually when I make something that has Italian flavors, we usually have like Frank Sinatra blaring in the kitchen and dim lights and candles everywhere. So I hope you're doing that at home. You've got some good tunes on, and you've got a little wine in your glass. So I need 3 cloves of garlic. These are giant cloves. Ryan, give them an overhead of that. Look at how huge these cloves of garlic are. So I'm going to use about 2. And the biggest question I get is how to easily peel garlic. And I've seen some people, you put it in a pot of boiling water for 30 seconds and then you have to take it out and then it peels off. And I'm thinking, well, that kind of wastes water. It's another step. And since we already have a cutting board and our knife, the easiest way to do this is just put the garlic on the board, put your knife right on top, and then an even kind of pressed, jot down, and then the peel just comes right off. And this is, wow, this is very fragrant garlic. This is amazing. Maybe I only need 1 of these big cloves. That was pretty big. But Ryan and I like a lot of garlic. So our friend Chiara, who is Italian, she thinks Americans use too much garlic in their cooking. And I say to her sometimes, well, we don't have the ingredients that American grocery stores have are much less flavorful, like vegetables and things, than in European markets. I mean, so we have to kind of really amp up flavor sometimes to make things taste good. And I still love you, Chiara, very much if you're watching. But I will make these for you and leave out the garlic. Or won't, or will I? I will. So I think we're just going to use 1 more clove of garlic. Why not? Right, Ryan?
Yeah, why not?
Why not? How is your red wine, my dear?
I think it's quite delicious. I'm excited to have it with these sliders.
Me too. I'm hungry tonight. I feel like I say that every time we cook on Together Live. I'm hungry tonight, yes. So these are starting to get nice and translucent. And now let's add our garlic in. We're going to add this and cook it for about 30 seconds, and that's it. Garlic burns really quick, and burnt garlic is very bitter, and we do not want bitter garlic in our beautiful white bean sliders. And once it cooks for about 30 seconds, it just kind of helps release those aromatics, and we got about 15 seconds to go, which is plenty of time for me to have a little sip of wine. Hope that my lips aren't turning purple on camera. And et voila, that's it, everybody. So, Ryan, is anybody cooking along with me tonight?
We have a few folks, I think, who are enjoying their wine and watching.
Well, you know, I think it's wonderful. Even if you're not cooking along, I hope you are having wine. And, you know, I think, like I said last week when we made that beautiful pastry dough by hand, I think it's really nice to see the process and to see how things come together and how they're made versus sometimes reading and directions and instructions. So I'm glad you guys are having fun. I am too. So now let's transfer this nice mixture into the white bean mixture. And you know what? I need a spatula because, we'll just use this. So I don't want to leave any of those herbs behind, any of that oil behind. I want to make sure we get all of that into our white beans. And then just use my fork here and just kind of lightly mix it together, just like this. And if you can see this, or I should say, when you make this at home, obviously you'll get a much closer, in-depth look at this. But you'll see this has some beautiful chunks of white beans and all of the green herbs, and it really is one of my favorite recipes. And to finish that story about making this for my family, my family are meat and potatoes kind of people. They love, my uncle loves chicken and steak and all of those things. And I made these for them, and he went crazy for them and just could not believe how delicious they were. The texture was wonderful, and it wasn't trying to be a hamburger, a meatless hamburger. It is a white bean slider, and that is what makes them so beautiful. And I have a little secret to show you. So I already showed you the process. I already showed you the shape of the slider, right? So let me just show you that process of how to get it. So, because I'm not going to bake these right now because they're going to bake it takes too long to bake them. But to make a slider, I just have a sheet pan here. And I just take a 2 1/4 inch ice cream scoop. And I'm not digging in here and compacting it down and raking it across and pushing it up the side of the bowl really hard. It's very light-handed, right? And just like this, onto the sheet pan, tidied up a little bit, and then this mixture makes 6 sliders. However, you can also make white bean meatballs with this. So I wasn't going to show you this because I was like, that recipe's also in the book, but it's a 2 for tonight. So hold on one second. Let me grab my other little scoop because, you know what? I'll do this by hand instead. You can also make this mixture into meatballs. So not the kind of meatballs that you can like simmer in sauce, but the type of meatballs where you can make them, bake them, maybe put them into, let's see, Ryan. We usually like to put them in little gratin dishes.
I think those are great.
On the bottom, put a little jarred vodka sauce, which, let's see my little pantry down here. Ooh, I have vodka sauce. Little jarred vodka sauce, and then the meatballs, some more vodka sauce, some cheese, and then bake it to get everything nice and hot. So let me show you just a meatball, because as you can imagine, they're round, like the slider. And you just take about 2 tablespoons worth, and probably want to do this with a scoop and some wet hands, because that will help the mixture from sticking. And I'm not, just like a meatball, I'm not squeezing it together. I'm just making a nice little meatball, just like that. And et voila. So same mixture, 2 ways. But the gratin dish idea with the vodka sauce and the cheese for the meatball is delicious. So, and if you're doing the meatballs, you'll bake them just as is for 20 to 22 minutes until they're nice and, not crisp, but they're kind of a little bit of a nice crispy outside and a little bit brown. But tonight's all about the sliders. So once I have all my sliders scooped, I'm going to put them into the oven, 350 degrees, for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'm going to take them out, and you're going to take your spatula, because they'll be hot, and you're going to press it down till it's about a ½ an inch thick, and you'll do that to all of them. You'll brush the remaining tablespoon of olive oil on top, put them back into the oven for 10 to 15 minutes, and et voila, you'll have sliders. So I'm gonna make meatballs for the rest of this, I think, Ryan, because we already have sliders over here. So let me show you the sliders because they're delicious, and I'll show you what happens to them. And these, I have some beautiful Gruyere cheese on top. But look at the bottom of these. They're nice and crisp and beautiful, and Oh, they smell so, so good. And that's the sliders. So what I love about this too is you can take them, you can take the sliders completely unbaked, take the mixture with you in a container, and you can cook them. You can even cook them on a grill. You can. I don't love. You can't cook them on the grate of a grill because they're a little delicate, so they might fall through. But you can put down a grill pan on top of a grill. You can put down a piece of aluminum foil, and you could just follow the same direction. Because you're not having to really worry about the internal temperature like you would meat, you just want to make sure that these are nice and cooked and have that beautiful kind of slightly crisp outside. So it's a great thing to bring with you or just, in your backyard. Again, my fantasy backyard also has this gorgeous outdoor grill and a pizza oven.
You mean an outdoor living room?
With a television.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a fountain.
And a chicken coop.
Mm-hmm. I'm obsessed with having chickens.
Really a chicken house.
A chicken house.
The way you have it envisioned.
Yes. There's a fabulous book, the Duchess of Devonshire.
Yeah.
And on the cover of the book, she is, it's a black and white cover, and she is out in her yard in an evening gown feeding chickens. And I just think, oh my God, I could do that in satin pajamas. Okay, back to sliders. So let's make a little bit of sauce to put on them. So I love making very simple sauces, and it's really just kind of the same ingredients over and over again that I use for things, but I just kind of layer them a little bit different. And this is a Fresh Thyme Mayo that Ryan and I actually made for on a show that we were on Food Network years ago called Bobby's Dinner Battle with Bobby Flay. And we won the episode of Best Home Cooks of Chicago. That was in 2012?
2013.
2013.
It aired in 13.
Oh my goodness, that was 7 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a very fun episode, great premise, and the idea is that it was 3 teams of 2. There was a husband and wife, Ryan and I, and then a mother and son. And we were all competing for the title of Best Home Cook of Chicago. And the theme was Speak Easy. And of course, the episode for us, we plied everybody with so much booze, it was ridiculous.
It was effective.
It was effective because we were the middle team that cooked, and then everybody had to leave our dinner party and go cook for the next one. So we got everybody loaded, and that was great. But this Fresh Thyme Mayo, Bobby Flay loved. So let me show you how to put it together. It's really, really, really easy. So just a small little bowl, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper, and about 1/4 of a cup of really good mayonnaise. I typically don't love mayo, but by itself, unless I'm dipping French fries in it. But this is not a gloopy sauce, so I'm okay with this. And then I need, my spoon doesn't fit in here. Hold on, guys. I need some Dijon mustard, about a teaspoon. And the difference between, this is not yellow mustard. It's not the squeeze bottle yellow mustard. This is a beautiful French Dijon mustard. It has wine and really good flavor. It's nice and spicy. And you can get this mustard, Dijon mustard, really in every grocery store now. There's many brands out there. I use Maille, M-A-I-L-L-E. And
it has the roundest flavor, I think.
I think so too. And it's the same, it tastes the same in the States as it does in Paris,
yes.
Which is where it's from Dijon, France. So it tastes the same. So I feel like that's a good sign of a really good Dijon mustard. And I need some fresh thyme, since this is a fresh thyme mayo. So I need, I don't know, I'm going to say about a half a teaspoon. I'm looking at my notes here because I don't want to give you bad measurements. But again, you can get all of these measurements at marksievers.com. So about a half a teaspoon of fresh thyme. Mince it just a little bit. You still want to see it in the sauce. So just like that. Perfect. Give this a little stir. And then we need some lemon zest and some lemon juice. I need, where's my rasp? Here we go. So I need about, let's see, half a teaspoon of lemon zest. And just like I say all the time, I'm zesting right over the bowl because all of those essential oils that are bursting out of this lemon as I'm zesting it, we want in the dish, not on our cutting board. And about a tablespoon of freshly squeezed lemon juice. And I always zest before I squeeze because once you squeeze the lemon, it's nearly, if not impossible, to zest it. So I don't even need this. I just need a teaspoon. Just watch the seeds. This is going to thin it out just a little bit, add great flavor, and of course, this little sauce, we make it all the time because it's great on sandwiches, it's great in a tartine, it's delicious with French fries. I know Ryan has made this at other friends' house when they're serving fish, so
it just brightens things up. It's better than just plain mayo.
It is better than plain mayo. And well, that's it. So it's really easy to make this elevated version of a slider. And you know, the inspiration for sliders, particularly these, is we live in a great neighborhood in Chicago that has some of the best hotels really in the country and ranked even, I think, in some of them in the world, right?
Yeah.
And I'm always jealous when we go to hotel bars and we order fabulous big martinis and Ryan gets sliders and I don't have any. So I thought I'm going to make my own version of like what I would think a chic hotel bar would serve if they had a vegetarian slider, which if anybody knows about chic vegetarian sliders, it's me because I made them. So I have some pretzel slider buns. You can find brioche buns, really all kinds. You can also make these slightly larger, the patties themselves, into hamburger size, so they can fit a regular hamburger bun. You'll probably get about 4 out of the mixture rather than 6. So just a little bit of mayo, and these are cool enough that I can handle them now. They're still a little warm. Oh, yeah, that's warm. Ooh. And I've put a little bit of Gruyere cheese on top. And then I think it always needs a little green. So if you have maybe some arugula, I might put some arugula on here. You could also put just some beautiful fresh basil leaves. You could put, that mayo is good. You could put roasted red peppers. You could put caramelized onions. You could do kind of a Parmesan version and do like fresh mozzarella and some gorgeous tomato sauce and do kind of like a white bean Parmesan sandwich. I mean, really, you don't want to do anything that has flavors of nothing maybe with like curry or nothing like Indian based or Thai based because of the ingredients that are already in the white bean sliders. They do tend, this is kind of more of a European kind of flavor combination, but take the idea of the slider and see what you come up with. I mean, I'm sure you could make like a great yellow curry slider or a beautiful lime and Thai basil slider. I mean, there's so many possibilities. So, put the little top on, and then I have these gorgeous wooden skewers. And look at that. That's a great little slider. course, I do have to take a bite because a cook should always taste their final product. Oh, this is good. Mmm. Mmm. They're so flavorful. The texture is still velvety. And don't skip the step of baking it as a round first. Don't be tempted to just flatten it down and then bake it off that way. The reason that I kept them kind of round for 10 minutes while I baked them and then flattened them after that is keeping them round at the for that first 10 minutes kept the inside nice and creamy and velvety and didn't kind of dry them out. I found that when I pressed them down at the beginning and baked them straight through, they just didn't have that same beautiful velvety texture. These are perfect. So, Mr. Sievers, I think you're going to have a lovely dinner. The question is, are you going to have sliders or are you going to wait for meatball gratin?
I'm not waiting.
Oh, so you're having sliders?
I'm having both. It just...
My job is never done.
You know how that works with me. You give me both options and I'll take both.
That's true. It's like me and buying bags and shoes. If it comes in more than one color, watch out.
That is true. So you have a question, and I think you addressed it, so maybe just revisit it.
Sure.
Would these work as a larger burger as well?
Absolutely. So you can... I used a 2 1/4 inch ice cream scoop to get everything uniform. And I got 6 sliders out of this mixture. So a couple things to reference to your question. You can easily expand this recipe 2, 3, 4 times and get more sliders. As you can see on the pan here, can you see that far, Ryan? Overhead?
Yes.
The sliders really, I mean, you can bake 3 across technically, and you could bake them much closer together, so you could really fill a tray with sliders for a crowd. To go back to your original ask, which was about making them larger for a hamburger size, absolutely. You're probably going to get about 4 hamburger patties sized out of this mixture. And I would make sure they're all nice and even and bake them the exact same way at the beginning. Bake them for 10 minutes as that round. Take them out of the oven, flatten them down just like the sliders, drizzle them with olive oil, and you probably will want to bake them, I would say, between 15 and 20 minutes versus 10 to 15 minutes after you flatten them. Again, you just want to make sure that they really have a chance to kind of get married, all of those ingredients together. And then you can, of course, top them with the same toppings, and you'll have a lot more bun choices for a regular size white bean burger because there's so many more options versus a slider bun. So absolutely. Long way around your answer, but lots of little tips in there, I hope. More questions?
Actually, Linda is going to make her own pretzel buns.
Linda, you're such an overachiever. I love you for that. Linda is our really fabulous friend from California. She's a beautiful watercolor artist, and she is an amazing cook. She sends us, well, she used to send us, no, I'm just kidding, Linda, beautiful Thai kaffir lime leaves from her garden. She has beautiful chickens in her garden, and one of my favorite photos of Linda that I have in my archives is her painting in her garden. It's in full bloom, and there are chickens running around. And I miss you, Linda. I really do. So, and Linda's also an accomplished baker, so her making pretzel buns is not a surprise. Not something that I would tackle, but I applaud you. Some more questions?
That's all we have for now.
That's it. Another quiet night. I hope you guys are quiet because I'm so interesting and you're waiting on every last word I say. And yeah. So Saturday night, it's a beautiful evening out weather-wise. The sun is going down. Ryan is, I think, his glass is empty. He needs more sliders. I want to make some meatballs. And safe at home. I hope you guys are following directions and rules of your state. And I will see you guys very, very soon. Next Saturday, where I'm tweaking the final schedule. So check out the website for Together Live next Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. See you right here. Good night, guys. Drinking wine, eating sliders, maybe a little movie. It's so good.